Welcome to the Naked Party Time podcast, where we get real and raw about life, leadership, and love,
while having lots of fun along the way.
So what do you say? Are you ready to get naked?
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Naked Party Time podcast. This is episode number 6. Whether you're watching on YouTube, hello to you guys there, or listening, my name is Jeff Manis. I'm here with my wife and co-host Sabrina. It feels like it's been a while since we recorded one of these.
It has.
We did get ahead a little bit on some recordings a while back, and then we had the bonus episode with my parents. That was really fun to do, and had a lot of people download and listen to that one. So it has been a while since we recorded, but now we're getting back on track and recording one today, and then also one recording next week as well. There'll be 2 released here in September. If you don't know, our goal is to release new episodes on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of each month with some bonus episodes along the way. We've been receiving some great feedback on the podcast. It's always fun to hear. We love hearing from people on how it's impacting them. It would mean a ton to us if you would subscribe, rate, review, like, and share our podcast wherever you are engaging from. That will help spread the word and increase the audience. And if this podcast has impacted you in some way, we'd love to hear about it. You can comment on our social media platforms or email us hello@jeffmanis.com. You can just look up Jeff Manis or Sabrina Manis on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find us there as well. So what is tonight, Sabrina?
Tonight is date night.
Whoop, whoop. It's date night. Thursday night is our date night. We normally record these on a Friday, which is one of my days off from my paid job at the church. But ironically, we're talking about relational health on this podcast, and we're using date night to record. Yeah, worked out great. Although you recently told me something about the podcast. People might think, how does a podcast work for a date night? But you told me something about the podcast that kind of relates. So what did you say to me about recording the podcast?
I was just, every time we record a podcast, I think, man, this is so intimate.
Yeah.
Like, oh my word, not in that way. But like on a relational level. Like, I feel like it takes our relationship to the next level without us intentionally doing that. Because, like,
we're sitting here talking to each other.
We are, but we don't normally sit across from each other or
we should start doing that.
Looking into each other's eyes as much as possible. Like, I feel like you're always looking into my soul. And so it just feels very intimate to me. Like, I'm saying stuff in front of you that maybe I've never said before, or I didn't know how to say. And sometimes you throw surprises at me and I'm like, I got to answer that now and act like I know what I'm doing. So I feel like it's intimate. Do you feel that way? You're used to doing stuff like this.
After you told me that, I was like, we should record podcasts every week. I never thought of it. I mean, after you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way. I mean, yeah, I do this for a living.
Yeah. Talk
to people or whatever. I bare my soul on the platform every single Sunday. And so to me, it's not a big deal. I bare my soul
on social media. I'm not necessarily looking into someone's eyes and talking to them. And so I don't know. I feel like it's stretched me and pulled me out of my comfort zone. Awesome. And so it's a good growing.
You're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks.
Well, we are recording a podcast on date night. We normally don't do that, but because I have to get a crown tomorrow on a filling that's cracked.
Exciting.
And Sabrina thought I'd be too sore to record a podcast, although I thought it would be fun to do a podcast with a half-numb mouth. That would have at least looked funny on YouTube.
Been entertaining.
Mouth drooping down, drooling everywhere. But in this episode, we are going to finish up the series we've been in called I Don't Want to Go Back to Normal, because normal wasn't working. I've actually loved talking through these things. I feel like on every one of these individual episodes could have been whole series in themselves.
Yeah.
And we'll circle back around, I'm sure, to many of these subjects. But we're talking about things from our pre-COVID world and lives that we hope doesn't go back to normal.
Yeah.
So many people are saying, I just want to go back to normal,
Yeah.
And we're saying on some things, we don't want to go back to normal. So far, we've talked about our financial health, physical health, spiritual health, mental health. And today we're wrapping up. We're going to try to hit both these today, our relational health and speed of life health.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering what we were going to do with that.
Yep.
Everything has to be the same.
Just add health to the end of it. We even have today. We're going to have some same things. Some
Are
some
you
of our
so
points.
excited?
I am. They all start with S. Super excited. If you've missed any of the podcasts, we'd love for you to go back, get caught up on all those.
Yeah.
We will provide links in the show notes for all of those. So let's just go ahead and dive right in, because we do want to try to power through and get both of these in this podcast. If we happen to not get them both in, we'll split it up into two.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to get this all into one. And both of these, we will do full podcasts on a lot of these issues later on. But today we're just going to hit on a couple of things. So first one is this. I don't want to go back to normal on our relational health. Not necessarily our relational health, but relational health.
Yeah, what are you saying about that?
As soon as I said it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't sound right. On relational health in general.
Yes.
Because if what was happening was normal, that wasn't working. So
Right.
specifically, we're here talking about marriage. But I do think there's some things for singles here as well. We always want to include singles in the conversation. And so we'll hit that as well. But the divorce rate already pre-COVID was about 50%. No matter what article or study you read, about 50% of all marriages end in divorce. Sadly, that number is the same among Christians. However, then I read an article on September 1st from the New York Post, and I'll link to that in the show notes too, but it was titled, U.S. Divorce Rates Skyrocket Amid COVID-19 Pandemic. And the article talked about how the number of people looking for divorces was 34% higher from March through June of this year compared to the same time in 2019. So divorce inquiries jumped 34% during COVID-19.
That's really high.
Super high when
Oh
it was
my
already
goodness.
at 50%, if it jumped 34% more. And then it said 31% of those seeking divorce cited that the lockdown had caused irreparable damage to their relationship.
It's just so sad.
Insane. Basically, what they're saying is we couldn't stand being alone together. That's horrible.
Man.
I don't even my brain can't even compute that.
I know.
So again, numbers among Christians are not much
It's
different.
why we're doing this
Yes.
series, because COVID should be revealing good and bad things in your marriage. Sadly, for 34% of people, it was bad.
Yeah,
Oh.
and then it was just recently, the last couple of days from recording our podcast here, that it was shared on social media that another high-profile Christian couple was filing for divorce, which makes the third high-profile couple, like high-power, high-profile, high-influence couple.
At least that we've seen on social media.
Yeah, the
That's
third one
put
that
it
we've
out
seen,
there
yeah.
publicly.
Yes, but the third one since COVID-19 that announced their divorce, and it's heartbreaking to see that. For anybody, but especially when you see people of influence that other marriages are following and learning from, when those marriages don't make it, I think it sometimes gives license to other people of like, well, it didn't work out for them, so it's okay for us. Anyway.
And it's so hard because we obviously can't know the ins and outs
Yeah, we don't know all
of
the
that.
details, and we shouldn't know all the details.
No, we shouldn't. But some people do use it as permission. Well,
Yeah.
if so-and-so can't make it, why should I even try? I mean, that's perfect door that
The
you can
enemy,
open for the enemy to swoop right
Yep.
in and be like, yeah, see,
Yep.
if they can't do it, you can't do it. So why, I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, the enemy takes those
man.
and twists it and uses it for his own purposes. But I didn't mean to go off into there. We did have a question that was asked by Jody. How have you and Sabrina gotten through the tough times in your marriage? Did you use counseling advice, lots of prayer? Like, what was it that got us through tough times in marriage? And we've had them. Like, if you go back and listen to the very first one of this series, we talk about every single one of these things we have failed miserably on. Every single one of these, including this relational one.
Yeah.
We have not always had a healthy relationship, whether it was in dating or marriage. Right now, we are in, I can honestly say, the best place we've ever been. We still have things we have to work through, but I think even in that, in the way we work through things, we're in the healthiest place
Yeah.
that we've ever been. We're going to use Jody and another question here to help walk through this. But have we used counseling? We actually we've never gone personally to a counselor together.
No.
But we're not opposed to that.
No. I honestly, I don't even know why.
Yeah.
Like, we've been through pornography addiction, like super hard things. And I don't know, maybe because it's not talked about as a normal thing. So it's not your first, oh, let's go to a counselor. Yeah. Since I've been doing counseling since 2016, you better believe it's the first thing I'm running to now. But it just was never crossed our minds.
I think in the seasons of our marriage where we probably needed it.
Yeah.
We were too embarrassed to go.
Probably. Maybe too prideful.
Well, and I don't think it was, I want to be careful how I say this, but I'm not sure it would have been accepted for us to go by certain people in our life, put it that way. Is that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It would have been frowned upon, looked down upon, isn't Jesus enough type mentality. And anyway, which
is a lie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jesus is enough, but Jesus also gives us things.
You're right. He gives us tools.
Tools, yes. Yeah. The counseling's one of them. Like if you are in a marriage, even if you just want to go to counseling just to enhance your marriage, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Like, don't ever, ever, ever let perception stop you from seeking the help you need to make sure your marriage doesn't just last but thrives.
Yeah.
So we have not done counseling together. You've done a lot of individual counseling,
yes,
and worked through some things that were roadblocks in our marriage in individual counseling.
Yes.
Through listening prayer counseling, I have as well. But we've not done anything together.
We've done listening prayer together.
Yes.
But we haven't had a mediator come in.
Yeah. Yep. Jesus was our mediator.
Yeah, he was.
She said lots of prayer. Absolutely. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think as we were talking through this, our podcast, you were like, only by the grace of God have we made it through some of these tough times.
I want to say something real quick on the prayer part. I just this year was introduced to the book Power of a Praying Whatever by Stormy O'Martian. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right, but Power of Praying Parent, Power of Praying Wife, Power of Praying Husband, Power of Praying for adult children, grandparents praying for their grandkids. Like, I pray through the Power of Praying Wife and Power of Praying parent every single week. I go through all 31 prayers every single week for Jeff and our kids. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just don't know what to pray or how to pray, and I ask the Holy Spirit to pray on my behalf, but I don't know. Sometimes I just need help in even knowing what I should be praying for. And this year, those have been huge for my prayer life, and I spend way more time in prayer now with the help of those books, which there's nothing wrong with reading prayers. Yeah. They're super powerful, and I moved almost every time reading them, but I just feel like it's helped increase my faith. So, like, use those resources, but I highly recommend those books. If you are struggling in your marriage, pray for your spouse and use that help.
Yeah. Yep. So how have we gotten through tough times? Because you're going to face them.
Oh, yeah.
And COVID's only increased because couples have been around each other a lot more.
Yeah.
Those hard times are going to increase. Mm-hmm. Sadly, we're seeing so many of them not make it through. But outside of the obvious answers of Jesus and prayer and those kind of things, like, as we talked about this, one of the biggest things we can say got us through tough times is we made the decision when we got married that divorce is not an option. Like, literally, no matter what happens, we have made the decision divorce is not an option. Right. Like, it is never even thought of or mentioned as even a possibility.
It's not joked about.
No, we don't joke about it. It is nothing that we keep in our back pocket. It's not a card that we can ever play. We don't use it as a manipulative tool against somebody, against one another. And because of that, since divorce is not an option, what does that mean?
There's no out. So you have to work on it.
Resolution is the only option. Or be miserable the rest of your life, and then we're not going to do that.
Right.
So we've just forced ourselves to deal with those tough things. And they still come up.
Oh, yeah.
Communication's not always been great with us. That was something we really, really had to work on. And it's something that we are still working on, but we've just, especially in the last 10 years, we've just never shied away from the awkward conversations. We try to address everything and share everything as it happens, as it comes up. So even those most awkward conversations about money, about hurt feelings, about like parenting's been a big one that we've had to walk through. We haven't always seen eye to eye. We've had really, really awkward conversations about sex, but we've embraced that because we want to be thriving in every aspect of our life, even our sexual life. So we've just forced ourselves to have those awkward conversations, and we've had some awkward ones, specifically about sex in our relationship. Being quick to forgive. Yeah. That's something that you, I think, have been leading the way in. Partly because I probably cause more things to be forgiven of than you do.
Well, that's a big part of the counseling I've been in is tapping out forgiveness as soon as it happens. And I teach that. If you meet with me for counseling, I teach you how to do that because I just think it's so important. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is you and breaking that chain between you and God because the enemy uses unforgiveness.
Yeah, when there's unforgiveness, then there's going to be a barrier between you and the Lord and a barrier between you and that other person.
Yeah.
So being quick to forgive, and then also I think a big one, and this is true for parents too, but being quick to ask for forgiveness. Yeah. That when you know you've been in the wrong, you spoke the wrong way, you reacted too quickly, whatever it is.
And that's super hard.
Yeah. But being quick to ask for forgiveness. This is in my parents' podcast. That's something my dad modeled super well for me, was being willing to admit that you messed up and ask for forgiveness of your kids and of your spouse. So that's some of and again, we're literally scratching the surface on these things, but those are some things we've done to work through the hard times. I would again just say the biggest one for us is we literally have never, ever once made divorce an option. Yeah. So resolution is the only option. So it's either resolve the conflict and get through this tough time or be miserable.
And we have had seasons of being miserable where we didn't talk to each other.
And then finally we had to resolve it.
We kept secrets and we had to talk about it.
So then another question that I think will help us kind of finish up the relationship conversation here. Katie asked this: other than putting God in the center of your marriage, what is the one piece of advice you would give married couples who've been married 10 years or more? I think this would be our advice, whether you've been married 10 minutes or 10 decades, which is not possible. Right. But no matter the length, this is what we would say. And it would start with God at the center of your marriage. These are the ones that are all going to start with S.
Okay, here we go.
So the first one is seek Jesus. Seek Jesus. How would you say it to me earlier?
You have to love Jesus more than your spouse, and if you have kids, more than your kids. Like, you seriously have to love him with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He has to be number one.
Yep. And have an individual relationship with him. More than your spouse, more than your kids. Seek Jesus. This is where I think this can speak to singles. Really, really well. Is there isn't a spouse on the planet that will satisfy you, fulfill you, or make you happy. The only place you'll find fulfillment is in Jesus. Right. And if you don't have that as a single person, you are still going to be unfulfilled in marriage.
I want people to stop making it a goal to be happy. Like, just stop.
That's
stop,
so good.
stop. I want my kids to be happy. I just want to be happy. Like, stop. You know what's important is that you're holy.
Yes, come on.
Be holy.
Yeah.
And then joy will come because
awesome.
Joy is a choice.
Yeah.
Forget happiness. It's a feeling.
Yep.
It's fleeting.
Yep.
It comes and goes. Like, you're filling your Jesus hole with things that make you happy. And are you happy?
Yeah.
No, you're not happy.
Yep. That's
so
awesome.
fill your Jesus hole with Jesus and strive to be holy and then choose joy
Yep.
because Jesus lives in your
Yes.
heart.
Amen. To the single folks out there, I want you to know there's nothing wrong with the desire to be married.
No.
There's nothing wrong with that. But when that desire becomes your ultimate goal,
Yeah.
then we've made marriage an idol. And married people make marriage an idol.
Oh, yeah. We make our spouse an
for
idol.
ourselves, or we
Yeah.
make marriage an idol for our children.
Yeah.
Like parents of adult kids, when are you going to get married? When are you going to give me grandchildren?
Yeah. Stop asking those questions.
Even saying to our kids, when you get married, instead of if you get married, if God has marriage in
change
the
your
plan for
language.
you. So nothing wrong with the desire to be married, but I don't want single people to think that marriage is going to solve anything.
Yeah. Marriage solves
It solves
nothing.
nothing. It actually creates more conflict in
my
life than
goodness.
less. I understand
Yeah.
the loneliness. I understand the desire for love, for sexual intimacy, all those things that the Bible says are within marriage. But singleness is not a season to endure. It's a status to celebrate.
That's really good.
That both singles and marriage, both singleness and marriage in Scripture are on equal playing, on
Yeah.
equal fields.
Yeah. One's not better than the other.
Yep. So seek Jesus is the first piece of advice. Second one, spend quality time together. Spend quality time together. How would you elaborate on that?
Have a weekly date night. Literally, you guys, we went to Jimmy John's, and we've actually gone to Jimmy John's, either taken it home
Yeah.
or sat there and ate probably the last 4 or 5 weeks.
It's been our go-to for a while.
Like, just, you have to be alone with your partner.
Yeah.
Like, no kids.
Yes, no kids.
Get
Say it
a
again.
babysitter.
Put them to bed early.
Yeah, put him to bed early and stay home, or find another couple to partner with if you can't afford babysitting. Find a teenager, pay him gas money. Like, just, you have to be together
Yeah.
because kids are leaving, but your spouse is not.
Yes.
And so you've got to invest in that relationship together. You have to go on vacation together.
Yes.
You
We're
have
getting
to
ready
get
do that.
away.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go on, 7 days away?
Yeah.
We'll be gone for 7 days, just
Yep.
me and you.
And guess what? We're leaving our kids home alone. Like, we're figuring it out.
Yep.
Like, we don't have any family here. You do what you have to do. And I'm having people check on them.
Yep.
And
We're getting money for food.
yes, like
Yeah.
you can figure it out. There are people in your life that will help you with your kids if that's an issue, but you have to get away.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to keep getting to know one another
Yeah.
if you spend
No
no
time
quality
together.
time
Alone
together?
together. No
Yeah,
quality time
you have to
alone.
be alone.
Yes. Yeah. Your marriage has to be the most important human relationship on the planet.
Yes.
Your marriage has to be.
Yes.
No other human relationship can become before you and your spouse.
No.
It's Jesus, then your spouse, then your kids.
Right.
So many people get that flipped or equal.
Yes.
My spouse and kids are equal. No.
No.
You didn't make a covenant with your kids.
You
You made a covenant with your
Yes.
spouse.
Yeah.
Yes, you are to love your children, care for them,
Oh,
provide
yeah.
for them, lead them, spend time with them, have fun with them.
Yeah.
Your spouse first.
Yep.
And make it a priority every single week. It's on our calendar to have date night.
Yes. Schedule it into your
Yep.
calendar so you can't schedule anything else.
And there are some weeks that things like this we've had some family in town.
oh, yeah.
There are some things, but we are so consistent with date night now that our kids will get on to us if we don't. Like if it's Thursday night and we're doing something else, they'll be like, "Aren't you guys supposed to be on date night?"
Oh, like a few weeks ago, like over a month ago, you watched a movie with Jada
Yes,
on date night.
and they got on to me.
Yeah, they were like, "Dad, you can't be with Jada. It's date night."
Yeah, I had daddy-daughter date.
Yeah.
Well, we were supposed to have date
Yeah.
night. You didn't complain though.
No, it's okay.
You were like, "Oh, I can watch TV by myself." So, and the last thing with this spending time together is just have fun. Like go on
Yes.
adventures.
Do something new.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
Get
Take
a hobby
class.
together. Take a
Yeah.
class. I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things we love doing is just going on what we call they're not really adventures, but going up into the mountains, going to
we just learned to kayak together.
Yeah.
We have never kayaked before, didn't know anything, and we borrowed kayaks.
Yep.
Like, use your community and ask.
Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Doesn't have to be fancy or extravagant. Just be intentional.
Yes. Plan something, do something, show your kids how important your marriage is.
Yep.
That mom and dad come first before them. They don't rule the roost.
And I'm glad you said that, because you are actually, in doing that, you are modeling for your children the kind of marriage relationship they should have.
Yeah.
Most likely your kids will just repeat what they've been taught in the home.
Right. That's true.
So seek Jesus, spend quality time alone together. And then the last S.
Can you guess?
We should sing the song. Let's talk about sex baby. The last one is sex.
Yeah.
If I know some people will say, well, of course you say that. You're a man.
Oh, Malanta.
Yeah. So
no, I agree.
Thank you. And you say this. Say what you say all the time.
That the enemy does everything he possibly can to bring you together before you are married, and everything he possibly can to tear you apart after you're married.
Yeah. Before you're married, the devil's trying to get you to have sex.
Right.
After you're married, he's trying to keep you from having sex.
Yep. And he does a darn good job at that.
Yes, he
has tested us this year.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll do a podcast on that. It'll be a fun one to do. awkward one to do, but I think it's one that's necessary to talk about this. But I mean, the question was, what advice do you have? Have sex.
And schedule it if you have to. Like,
Yep.
do whatever it takes to come together and be one.
And here, I'm so glad you said that. Because when we say have sex, it's not just about the pleasure part.
Yeah.
There is something
it's more than that.
Incredibly spiritual and powerful and unifying about sex. Sex is a metaphor inside of the metaphor of marriage. So Scripture tells us that marriage is an illustration of how Christ and the church are one.
Yeah.
Sex is the ultimate picture of that.
Yeah.
It's literally two different people becoming one physically.
Yeah.
It's what Christ does with us. So every time that a Christian couple specifically is having sex, you are saying to the other, I'm giving myself to you in the way that Christ gave himself to us.
That's huge.
It's amazing. And
it's an act of worship.
Absolutely.
God designed it.
Yes.
He created us to be sexual beings and to desire sex within marriage.
Yes. So it's not just a man thing.
No.
And it's not only for childbearing.
No.
Sex is meant to unify the couple together. And outside of actual physical or mental limitations, which you can oftentimes get help with.
Yeah.
Outside of actual limitations that don't allow you to have sex, a couple should be regularly having sex together.
Yes.
To illustrate to one another that we're one.
Plus, you need that connection.
Yeah.
Right? In this Power of a Praying Wife, one of the prayers talks about being affectionate with your spouse. And Jeff and I are not touchy sort of people. And so every time I pray that for him, I'm like, I got to think about touching him in some way that's not necessarily sexual, but we just need to be physically touching each other every single day. And we need to be connecting together in an intimate setting several times a week, if possible, because we just, and plus you're showing the enemy that you're one. Like you need to show him that you're a unified front no matter what he's throwing at you.
Yeah. And we need to get moving on here, but I believe, and we don't have time to drill down on this, I'm going to say it and we're going to have to move on, but I believe that when a couple comes together, a married couple regularly comes together sexually, that happens naturally when the other parts of intimacy are there.
Yeah.
So when you're seeking Jesus, he's your number one. When you're spending quality time together, when you're putting your marriage before your kids, when you're being open and honest and having communication with one another, when you're forgiving one another.
Yeah.
All those things, the end result naturally is going to be sexual intimacy.
Right.
And then sexual intimacy only helps foster those other things.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I've been listening to Mark and Grace Driscoll's podcast, the Real Marriage podcast. And I loved how they talked about when there's a couple who's not having sex regularly, look at the other things going on in their life and see what it's affecting.
Wow.
Because it affects everything.
Yeah,
like
it does.
what Jeff just said, we need to be doing all those things. And then you're drawn together and you have a desire to be connected, and you can only be connected to that your spouse. You're one person for the rest of your life, and you want that. And it again tells the enemy to go back to hell where he belongs.
And on the flip side, to the singles, we're hanging out here longer than I anticipated, but to singles. So in the same way that marriage is a metaphor of how Christ and the church are one, here's the beautiful part about singleness. Singleness is a metaphor, a picture of God's eternal kingdom. That for eternity, once we die and pass on into eternity, Jesus said there is no marriage in heaven.
That's true.
That we will be fully satisfied in Christ alone for eternity. So in the same way that marriage, sex, and marriage are a picture of how Christ and the church are one on earth, singleness is our picture of how Christ and the church are one for eternity.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome.
So don't think you have to have sex as a single person to be a picture or a model of Christ. You are actually a model for the married people of what eternity will look like. Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome. I never thought about it because there will be no marriage in heaven.
Yes.
It's only an earthly act.
Yep. So here's some resources, and then we'll move on to this last one. But these will be in the show notes. But a couple of books that we've read recently: "Relationship Goals" by Mike Todd is unbelievable.
Yes, so good.
"Breaking the Marriage Idol" by Cutter Calloway, I think should be required reading for everyone.
Yeah.
Lori and Matt Krieg, I cannot wait for their
I'm
book.
so excited.
We already pre-ordered it. Go to Amazon, pre-order it. It's called "An Impossible Marriage." It comes out, I think, at the end of
October 27th.
But shout out to Lori and Matt. Their podcast, Hole in My Heart podcast, is amazing.
Yeah.
But their book, Impossible Marriage, is going to be unbelievable. And then one of my favorite sermon series we've done on relationships called #Single. You can go to our church website, elementchurch.life. I'll put the link right to the sermon series in the show notes. And those are some resources that we would suggest for the marriage piece. Moving on to the last one. We don't want to go back to normal in our speed of life, the way we are.
Health.
If you're reading it straight from our notes. So just to refresh everybody, pre-COVID statistics showed that 60% of U.S. adults said they at least sometimes felt too busy to enjoy life.
Oh my Lanta. That blows my mind.
60% too busy to enjoy life. 74% of parents said they at least sometimes felt too busy to enjoy life. 1/3 of all children said they always felt rushed.
Wow.
60% of employees report being in a high-stress job. Here's a statement that I came up with. We used this way back in the original podcast. If we're not always on the go, then we're always on our phones.
Yeah, it's true, and we're guilty.
So we now spend on average 5 hours a day on our phones. We check our phones once every 12 minutes or about 80 times a day. This last one's not surprising at all. 77% of young people answered yes when asked, when nothing else is occupying my attention, the first thing I do is reach for my phone. So the Starbucks winner for the question this week came in from our friend Jeremy Little, and this will kind of drive the rest of our conversation here. He said this: "A couple of times this week, I've come across a verse where Jesus goes off by himself to pray and spend time with God. It always challenges me to spend more time in solitude. The question is, do you have any practical advice for making time for solitude and hearing from God?" And a great question.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I really do believe that our speed of life and all the clutter in life prevents us from that solitude time. Prevents us from hearing from God because we have so much noise we can't hear.
Yep.
So again, these all start with S. I'm super excited. But there's 3 things we're going to touch on here. And Sabrina, you came up with this first one, but the first thing we got to do if you want to make some time for solitude, for hearing from God, and just to slow down.
Yeah.
And it sounds simple, but it's going to be hard to do, is stop some things.
Yep. Say no.
Yeah. Learn to say no.
Yep.
N-O. It's a powerful word, right?
Yep. 2 letters.
Yep.
You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But we fill up life
Yeah.
with everything. We've gone through seasons where we've been super busy. One of the things I think that we're pretty strict about it now is we protect our calendar.
Yeah.
Like there's some times where life happens and some things are forced on us, but as far as regular activities, we don't have very many. And in fact, one of the things Sabrina and I do in our marriage that we started doing just this last year is we have a weekly business meeting. We call it that, a business meeting on Sunday night where we sit down together.
Yeah.
We look over we have a shared calendar that we use on.
Which I would highly recommend that. My
where
goodness.
I can see your schedule. You
Yes.
see mine. We have our kids' schedules on there.
Share a calendar.
But we sit down on Sunday night and we look over the next week.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each month, we look at the whole month. And then at the beginning of every quarter, we look at the whole quarter.
Yeah.
And we talk about what are the big rocks? What are the things we're doing in life? All the kids' activities. And then we map out our whole week. What are we doing here? This is what we're doing for dinner. Da, 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 da. It takes us maybe 30 minutes the most.
Yeah, if that.
But sitting down every week to schedule out our time, saying no to lots and lots of things. We've just stopped doing things. We really, really limited for all of our kids' lives. We limited how many activities they could be in.
Yeah, we had a rule when all of our kids, I mean, some of them are still in school, but when they were little, they could only play one sport at a time and then one sport
each semester.
So they had to choose between
2 sports a year.
Yep.
We didn't let them do an extra one in the summer.
No.
They chose 2 sports a year.
We did nothing in the summer.
Yep.
No sports.
So, again, I know that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but
Right.
it prevented us from running
man.
ragged all the
And
time.
it's still hard. I mean, we have 4 kids, 5 and under. So there were seasons where we had maybe 2 kids each playing a sport.
And we were running around different places.
Yeah.
But if they were doing a sport, we wouldn't let them do another act. Like they couldn't do ballet and soccer at the same time.
It's one thing.
One activity per semester.
And so they had to make wise decisions and choose what they wanted to invest their time in.
Yep.
And
So
it worked really well for us.
I think for a lot of people, it's just stopping some things.
Yeah.
It's saying no to the next party invitation.
Yes.
You don't have to go to everything.
You don't have to go to every birthday party.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to every multi-level marketing party. You don't have to go to every new movie that comes out or whatever it is. Like, you don't have to do it. You can say no.
Yep.
I say no to stuff I get invited to all the time. And I don't feel bad because my time is precious.
And by saying no to all those other things, it frees up time for these important things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Spending time with God.
Yeah.
Spending time with your spouse.
Yeah.
Spending time with your kids. Going to church.
Yeah. Together.
I mean, it's amazing to me how quickly church gets pushed aside.
Yeah. Well,
just boggles
all
my
things
mind.
Jesus are the first to go.
So anyway, stop some things.
Yeah.
Second one has been the biggest one for us, I think, is shut some things off.
Yeah.
Like specifically technology things. Here, I'm stealing a phrase from John Mark Comer. Turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. I love smartphones. I always want the latest, newest, shiniest. But I think smartphones have become the bane of our existence because they are constantly calling for our attention.
Yeah. And
Constantly.
reading John Mark's book helped us.
The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yes.
I think it's a book I might try to read every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. But so one of the things I did, and you have done this as well, is we've turned off almost all the notifications on our phone.
Yes.
So I don't get email notifications. Neither do you.
No.
I have to open the email to know if I got one.
Yeah.
I don't get any social media notifications.
No. Me
Not
neither.
for a like, not for a DM, not for a comment.
I do.
You keep
I
Facebook
get,
Messenger on.
Yes, because I text a lot of people that way.
But
and
you don't get likes, comments,
no.
follows.
No, I have
none
to
of that.
check it. Yeah.
No Snapchat notifications.
No Marco Polo notifications.
So I turn off all notifications. I don't open my email until I get to the office at work. So that way I'm not pulled away by email. And the only notifications I have turned on right now, I checked before I record the podcast. I have my text messages turned on, FaceTime, Group Me, which is the app our staff uses to communicate. And then there's a couple other apps, random apps that rarely have notifications, like Maps, the Notes app, my to-do apps that have my to-do list on them.
I guess I have notifications on my reminder app.
Yeah, the reminder app, but that's to remind you of things that are on your to-do list.
Yeah.
Other than that, like we literally, I don't have any notifications on. And I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb almost all day long. I miss calls all the time. My kids are trying to get a hold of me. I'm like, oh, sorry, I had my Do Not Disturb on. I don't want my phone running my life.
Yeah.
I don't want how many likes I get being what's pulling me away.
Yeah.
So we actually just this year, we started using old school alarm clocks, not our phones. So I don't use my phone to check the time in the middle of the night or for an alarm clock. We have old school alarm clocks. And then when I go to bed, I turn Do Not Disturb on my phone. I put my phone face down. And then when I get up in the morning, I don't look at it until after I've spent my time with God. So I personally don't use my phone for my quiet time, which helps because then I don't see the notification that there's a text message waiting. So that's been just shutting things off.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't go here, but I'm gonna. One of my biggest pet peeves right now is Apple Watches. They're cool. Don't get me wrong. I think they are one of the coolest inventions ever. But the amount of people that check their wrist when they're having a conversation with me drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's shut some things off.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. Also, really, this year we've done a lot better. This is one thing that we were horrible with for most of our life is the amount of TV and Netflix. Well, TV, and then after Netflix was invented.
Yeah.
Netflix. According to the Nielsen report, American adults are watching 5 hours and 4 minutes of TV a day. So basically, we're watching, as adults, watching TV from the time we get home from work until the time we go to bed.
And we're also on our phone while we're watching TV.
Yeah. So I recently heard a pastor say this, and this is not direct quoted, but I didn't go look it up, but it was on another podcast. He basically said, how sad will it be when we look back 10 years from now and the one thing people will be able to talk about accomplishing during COVID was how much Netflix they watched. And that's true.
I know.
Like the Netflix usage, the amount of subscribers went up 74%, I read.
Holy cow.
I think it was 2 months after COVID hit. The amount of subscribers went up. And listen, we have Netflix. We love watching TV. I'm not against TV.
No.
I'm not against using your phone or social media.
But there can be limits.
Yes, like shut it off. We don't know how to just sit anymore.
Right.
Like just sit. Even that 5 seconds was weird, right? I don't even know it was 5 seconds. I was going to wait and see if you said something, but you were just staring at me. That was one of those intimate moments.
I didn't feel intimate.
No,
but...
it felt awkward, right?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to sit. And that leads right into the last one. So the first S was stop some things. Just start saying no. Shut some things off.
Yeah.
Like turn your smartphone to dumb phone. Turn off all your dumb social media notifications. You don't need to know if somebody liked your post.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy. So turn some things off. Cut down on the media intake. And then the last one, which we don't have any time to get into, we're about to the end here, but it's probably the best thing we've done.
Oh, by far.
In a long, long time. Sabbath. Just taking one whole day a week 24 hours. For us, it's from 6:30 p.m. on Friday night to 6:30 p.m. on Saturday night, about there.
Right.
24 hours where we stop all work, all accumulation, all production. And we simply rest in the presence and provision of God. The 4 things of Sabbath: stop, rest, delight, worship. And that has changed everything for us. It's changed our whole week.
Have you noticed that you're like craving it?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
I can't wait for Sabbath.
We've had company the past 2
Yes,
weekends.
and we haven't had
which is
Yes,
awesome.
but
We
it's
loved
not been a
having them.
normal Sabbath.
Right. And so I feel like I'm like, I can't wait for this Saturday to come. I'm just like
Yes.
craving
Yep.
the no time frame.
Yep.
Ah,
Yeah, we don't schedule anything.
no.
Now, again, and the great part about Sabbath in the New Covenant is it's not legalistic.
No.
We don't do it in order to earn favor from God. We're actually doing it from God's favor. He gave us a
Yeah.
day of rest. It's a gift from
Yeah,
Him.
we're basking in what
Yep.
Jesus provided.
And so there have been a couple of Saturdays for us where something was thrust into our life that we did, or we chose to do something that was not normal for Sabbath, but very, very few and far between. And one of the big things, like on Sabbath, we don't do social media.
No.
For 24 hours, we don't open social media.
And when Sabbath is over, I don't want to get back
Yep.
on. I get really slow into it.
Yep.
On Sunday, I'll kind of start getting back on it,
Yep.
and I'm just like, I don't even want to be on
Yep.
here.
We don't do any shopping on Sabbath. We don't spend money.
No planning.
Nope.
No talking about any future
Yep.
things.
We're literally it's a time where we actually are just celebrating in what God's already provided instead of trying to seek more provision.
It's just being in the moment.
And it's like Saturday mornings it's my favorite day of the week. I sit for hours and have nothing to do but read scripture, pray, listen to worship music. Just sit there. I usually make you breakfast every Saturday morning. And then about 9:30, 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, we'll watch a TV show together while we eat breakfast.
Yeah.
But we limit media intake. I'm telling you, folks, Sabbath is life-changing.
Yes.
It is life-changing. I'm doing a whole sermon series on it in November, which I'm super excited for. And in November, we're going to do 2 full podcasts on it. So we're going to dive deep into that. The best resource I can give you for the Sabbath is John Mark Comer's book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
So good.
His church, Bridgetown Church, is that what it is? I think it's Bridgetown Church in Portland, Oregon, did a 7-week series on Sabbath, which is phenomenal. John Mark's brilliant. You need to go read that book. But we've got to wrap it up here. We're 47 minutes in, so little past the time I said I wanted to go, but we did get both in. So we talked about not going back to normal on relational health and on speed of life health. And I hope that was helpful for everybody. We did cram a lot into there. Some exciting news coming up here. We are going to be doing a special interview podcast with our friend Joe Sangel.
Whoop, whoop.
And yeah, I can't wait for that.
It's
It's going to be awesome. Get fired up.
That's right.
So we're going to be wanting some questions for Joe. If you got some questions you want Joe to answer, please let us know. In the meantime, continue to like, rate, review, subscribe, all the things on all of our platforms there. And why don't we go ahead and end? Is there anything else supposed to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's date night. Let's end with our marriage mantra. Ready?
Ready.
We are united in Christ, unstoppable with Christ, and unbreakable because of Christ. Now it's time for you to go get naked
And party.
We'll see you on the other side. Thank you for listening to the Naked Party Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review on all of your podcast platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure and subscribe as well. For more content, go to jeffmanis.com.